The council chamber fell silent as Elder Torvash slammed his clawed hand on the stone table. The sound echoed through the massive hall like thunder. Around him, representatives from 40 different worlds watched with wide eyes. Some stepped back. The Vrexian elder stood nearly 9 feet tall, his scaled body covered in the scars of 100 battles. His yellow eyes burned with rage that made even the bravest warriors nervous. 3 weeks, he growled, his voice shaking the air. For 3 weeks, the humans have held our children. 17 of our younglings went to their world for peace, for understanding between our peoples, and now they refuse to return them. Captain Han Jiwoo stood across from the massive alien. He was average height for a human, which meant he barely reached the elder's chest. His uniform was clean and neat. His face showed no fear, only calm patience. This seemed to make Torvash even angrier. "We sent our children to you in good faith," another Vrexian elder spoke up. Her name was Kazhira, and her voice carried the pain of a mother. "We trusted you with the most precious thing we have. Our future, our blood, and you have stolen them from us." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded answers from the humans. Others called for immediate action. The Vrexians had the strongest military in the known galaxy. Everyone knew what this could mean. War, destruction, death for millions. Councillor Dythor raised his hand for silence. He was old even by his species' long-lived standards. His blue skin had faded to almost white with age, but his voice still carried authority. "Captain Jiwoo," he said carefully, "these are serious accusations. The Vrexian Empire claims you have kidnapped their younglings. They say you refuse all communication about returning them. They have given us proof that their children were sent to your colony of New Sol 3 months ago. But when they tried to retrieve them 3 weeks ago, you denied their request. What do you say to these charges?" Jiwoo took a breath. Behind him, Dr. Kim Hyerin stood quietly. She was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied the minds of alien species. Her hands were folded in front of her. She looked sad but not worried. "The younglings are not kidnapped," Jiwoo said simply. "They are safe. They are healthy. They are happy. Then return them," Torvash roared. The sound made several smaller species duck behind their chairs. "Return them now or we will come and take them. And we will not be gentle about it. They're home already," Jiwoo said. The chamber went completely silent. Every being there stared at the human. Even Torvash seemed confused by the statement. "What trick is this?" Kazhira demanded. "What human lies do you speak?" "Their home is with us. With their families. With their people. They are on New Sol," Jiwoo continued in that same calm voice. "They have been there since they arrived. We have not moved them. We have not hidden them. They are exactly where you sent them 3 months ago. Then why can we not retrieve them?" Torvash's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "Why do you deny our ships permission to land? Why do you refuse our requests?" "Because," Dr. Hyerin spoke for the first time, stepping forward, "the younglings themselves asked us not to allow you to take them yet." Another explosion of noise filled the chamber. This was impossible. Vrexian younglings were raised to obey their elders without question. They were warriors in training from the moment they could walk. The idea that they would refuse to return home was unthinkable. "You have brainwashed them," an elder named Greshtok accused. "You have poisoned their minds with your weak human ideas. This is an act of war. We have done nothing but care for them," Hyerin said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "We fed them when they were hungry. We gave them safe places to sleep. We taught them things they wanted to learn. And we asked them what they wanted. Something I understand is not common in your culture." The insult was clear, though Hyerin's voice never rose. Several Vrexians snarled. Torvash looked ready to leap across the chamber and tear the humans apart with his bare claws. Dythor stood up. "Enough. This council will not become a battlefield." He looked at Jiwoo. "You say the younglings refuse to return?" "Yes. On what grounds?" Jiwoo glanced at Hyerin. She nodded. He turned back to the council. "They say they are not ready. They say they need more time. They say..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "They say they finally feel safe." The Vrexian elders reacted as if they had been slapped. Safe? Their younglings were the children of the greatest warrior race in the galaxy. They were bred for combat, trained for survival. How dare these soft, clawless, weak creatures suggest that Vrexian children were not safe in their own homes? "You accuse us of harming our own children?" Kazhira's voice trembled with fury. We accuse you of nothing, Jiwoo said. We simply tell you what your children have told us. Lies, Greshtok spat. All lies, Dithor held up his hand again. This matter is too serious to be decided in anger. I propose this. The Vrexian elders will be allowed to travel to New Sol. They will see their younglings with their own eyes. They will speak to them directly. Then we will decide what happens next. The humans will allow this visit within 48 hours, or face sanctions from this council. Do all parties agree? Torvash stared at Jiwoo for a long moment. The human did not look away, did not flinch. Finally, the elder nodded. We agree, but if we find our children harmed in any way, if we discover any proof of this kidnapping, we will reduce your colony to ash. Do you understand, human? I understand, Jiwoo said calmly, and I welcome your visit. I think you need to see what we have seen. I think you need to hear what we have heard. What does that mean? Kasira demanded. Jiwoo smiled, but it was a sad smile. It means, honored elders, that your children have something to tell you. Something important. And I think perhaps you have not been listening. The council session ended with tension thick enough to cut. As the representatives filed out, many whispered among themselves. War was coming. Everyone could feel it. The humans had made a terrible mistake. You did not take children from the Vrexians and expect to survive. But as Jiwoo and Hyerin left the chamber, they did not look afraid. They looked determined. Behind them, the Vrexian elders gathered together, planning their journey to New Sol, planning what they would do when they found their younglings. None of them were prepared for what they would actually find there. The galaxy held its breath and waited. 3 months earlier, the transport ship landed on New Sol under a gray morning sky. The cargo door opened, and 17 Vrexian younglings walked down the ramp. Each one stood at least 7 feet tall, even though they were considered children by their species. Their scales gleamed in the sunlight. Their claws clicked on the metal. They moved like predators because that was what they were. Lee Minho stood at the landing pad with the other human teachers and staff. He smiled and waved at the approaching aliens. Next to him, his colleague whispered nervously. They're so big, she said. They're just kids, Minho replied quietly. Scared kids far from home. The lead Vrexian youngling stopped in front of the humans. His name was Kresh. He was Torvash's son, though none of the humans knew that yet. He looked down at the small, soft creatures before him. No claws, no fangs, no scales to protect their weak skin. How did these beings survive? Why were they not afraid? I am Kresh, he announced. His voice tried to sound strong, but there was uncertainty in it. We are here for the exchange program. You will teach us your ways for 1 season, then we return home. Minho stepped forward and held out his hand. Welcome to New Sol, Kresh. I'm Teacher Minho. We're happy to have you here. Kresh stared at the offered hand. In Vrexian culture, you did not touch someone unless you were fighting them or mating with them. This casual contact made no sense, but the human seemed to expect it, so Kresh carefully placed his clawed hand in the human's smaller one. Minho shook it gently, still smiling. Come on, Minho said. Let's get you all settled in. You must be tired from the journey. The younglings followed the humans through the colony. They noticed things that confused them. Human children playing in parks without any weapons training. Adults helping each other carry things without expecting payment or dominance displays. Everyone smiled at them. Not the smile of a predator before attacking, just friendly smiles. They were taken to a large building. Inside were rooms with soft beds, bright windows, and something the younglings had never seen before. Pictures on the walls. Happy pictures. Pictures of families. Pictures of nature. Pictures just for beauty. These are your rooms, a human woman explained. Her name was Chayuna, and she worked as a social worker. You can decorate them however you like. Make them feel like home. Warriors do not need decoration, one youngling named Vorna said stiffly. We need only a place to sleep between training. Well, Yuna said gently, you're not just warriors here. You're students, and students need comfortable spaces to learn and grow. That night, the younglings gathered in their common area. They were confused and unsettled. These humans are strange, Kresh said. They show no fear. They have no weapons. How do they survive? They are weak, another youngling named Talix declared. We could destroy them easily. Then why don't we feel like we could? A smaller youngling asked quietly. Her name was Shira, and she was the youngest of the group. They make me feel different, not scared. But not strong either. Something else. The others had no answer for her. The first week was the hardest. The younglings were used to waking before dawn for combat training. Instead, the humans let them sleep until they naturally woke up. They were used to earning their food through competitions and trials. Instead, the humans simply gave them meals 3 times a day. Good meals. Hot meals. As much as they wanted. Dr. HFY watched them carefully during this time. She saw the signs she had been looking for. The constant vigilance. The way they never fully relaxed. How they flinched at sudden noises. How they watched each other for signs of weakness, ready to exploit any vulnerability. On the 5th day, young Shira cut her hand on a piece of equipment during a science lesson. She immediately hid it, wrapping her hand in her shirt. In her culture, showing injury meant showing weakness. Weakness meant you would be targeted by the others, but Minho saw. He quietly approached her after class. "Shira, let me see your hand," he said gently. "It is nothing," she said quickly. "I am fine." "I know," Minho said. "But even warriors need to take care of injuries. Come with me." She followed him to the medical room, expecting punishment for being careless. Instead, he carefully cleaned and bandaged her hand. He worked slowly, making sure not to hurt her. When he finished, he smiled at her. "There, all better. You're very brave, you know." Shira stared at him. "I showed weakness. I failed." "You got hurt," Minho corrected. "That's not weakness. That's just being alive. Everyone gets hurt sometimes. The brave thing is taking care of yourself and letting others help you." Something in Shira's chest felt strange. Warm. Confused. She did not understand it yet. But it was the first time anyone had cared about her pain instead of seeing it as a flaw. The second week brought more changes. The humans introduced something called free time. Time when the younglings did not have to train or study or prove themselves. They could just be. At first, the younglings did not know what to do with this time. They stood around awkwardly, waiting for instructions. But the human children came and invited them to play games. Simple games. Throwing balls. Running races not for competition but for fun. Drawing pictures. Talix watched a small human child, barely up to his knee, offer him a crayon. "Draw with me," the child said with a big smile. "I am a warrior," Talix said. "I do not draw." "Everyone can draw," the child insisted. "Look, I'll show you." And somehow Talix found himself sitting on the floor with a tiny human child, learning how to draw a tree. It was ridiculous. It was beneath him. It was actually kind of nice. By the 3rd week, Dr. HFY saw the first real breakthrough. Kresh, the strongest and most disciplined of the younglings, had been pushing himself harder than the others. He never rested. He never showed emotion. He was trying to be perfect. One afternoon, after another long day, he was practicing combat moves alone in the gym. Minho found him there, clearly exhausted. "Kresh, it's rest time. You should go relax with the others." "I must train," Kresh said. "I must be strong. I cannot fail my father." "You're not failing anyone," Minho said. "You're doing great. I must be better, stronger, faster, smarter. I must never show weakness." Minho was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Kresh, you don't have to be strong right now. You're safe here." The youngling stopped moving. He turned to look at the human with confusion in his eyes. "What?" "You're safe," Minho repeated. "No one here is going to hurt you. No one here is judging you. You can rest. You can be a kid. You don't have to prove anything." Something inside Kresh broke. All the pressure, all the fear, all the exhaustion he had been carrying his whole life suddenly became too much. His legs shook. His vision blurred. And for the first time in his entire life, Kresh cried. He expected punishment. He expected Minho to call him weak, to report his failure. Instead, the human just sat down next to him and waited quietly until the tears stopped. "I'm sorry," Kresh finally whispered. "For what?" Minho asked. "For being weak." "You're not weak," Minho said firmly. "You're strong enough to admit when you're tired. You're strong enough to feel your feelings. That takes real courage." That night, the other younglings noticed something different about Kresh. He smiled at dinner, actually smiled. And when Shira dropped her fork, instead of seeing it as weakness, he just picked it up for her and handed it back. "Thank you," she said. Surprised. "You're welcome," he replied. It was such a small thing, but to them it meant everything. Because for the first time in their lives, they were learning what it meant to be gentle, to be kind, to help each other not for advantage, but just because they could. The humans were teaching them something their own culture had forgotten. They were teaching them how to be children. The Vrexian warship descended through New Sol's atmosphere like a falling blade. Inside, Elder Torvash and 15 other elders prepared for what they expected to find. Their weapons were ready. Their anger was sharp. If the humans had harmed their younglings, there would be blood. Captain Jiwoo waited at the landing pad with Dr. Hiran and several other staff members. He looked calm, but his heart was beating fast. Everything depended on the next few hours. Behind them, the younglings watched from the windows of their building. They had been told their elders were coming. Some looked excited. Others looked afraid. The ship landed with a thunderous boom. The door opened and the elders emerged. Torvash stepped out first, his massive form casting a shadow across the landing pad. His eyes scanned the area like a predator looking for prey. When he saw Jiwoo, he marched directly toward him. "Where are they?" Torvash demanded. No greetings, no pleasantries, just the raw need of a parent looking for his child. "This way," Jiwoo said simply. "Follow me." He turned and walked toward the main building. The elders followed, their clawed feet leaving marks on the ground. They moved in formation, ready for an ambush that would never come. Human citizens watched from a distance. Some children waved at the massive aliens. The elders found this disturbing. Why were these weak creatures not fleeing in terror? Jiwoo led them through the colony toward a large building near the center. As they got closer, they could hear sounds. Strange sounds, laughter, music, voices raised not in anger but in joy. Torvash's confusion deepened. They reached a wide-open area that the humans called a school courtyard. And there, the elders stopped and stared. Their younglings were there, all 17 of them. But they were doing things that made no sense to the elders' minds. Kresh was sitting on the ground with 3 small human children, reading them a story from a colorful book. Forna was painting a picture on a large canvas, her claws delicately holding a brush. Talix was playing some kind of ball game with human and alien children mixed together, all of them laughing when someone missed. "What is this?" Kashira whispered. "What have you done to them?" At that moment, one of the human children spotted the newcomers. "Look, more Vrexians!" The child shouted excitedly. Several younglings looked up. When they saw their elders, their reactions were mixed. Kresh stood up slowly. His face showed many emotions: fear, hope, uncertainty. He walked toward his father and the courtyard went quiet. Every human and youngling watched to see what would happen. "Father," Kresh said, stopping a few feet away. "Kresh," Torvash replied. He looked his son up and down, checking for injuries, for signs of harm. "Are you well?" "Yes, father. I'm very well." "Then come. We are taking you home. This madness ends now." Kresh did not move. "Father, I need to talk to you about that." The elder's eyes narrowed. "There is nothing to discuss. You are my son. You belong with your people. We leave within the hour." "But I don't want to leave yet," Kresh said quietly. The words fell like stones. The other younglings gathered behind Kresh, supporting him with their presence. The elders stared in disbelief. A Vrexian youngling did not refuse an elder's command. "It simply did not happen. You do not want to leave?" Torvash repeated slowly, dangerously. "You would choose these soft, weak creatures over your own blood? Over your heritage?" "It's not about choosing against you," Kresh said. His voice trembled but held firm. "It's about choosing something for myself. For the first time in my life, I have been allowed to choose." "Explain yourself," Torvash commanded. Kresh took a deep breath. Behind him, Vorna stepped forward to stand beside him. Then Shira. Then Talix. One by one, all 17 younglings formed a line, facing their elders together. "These humans," Kresh began, "they have shown us something we never knew existed. They have shown us what it means to be safe. Not strong, not dangerous, not superior, just safe." "Safe?" Greshtuk spat. "You are Vrexian. You are born strong. You need no safety." "But we did," little Shira spoke up, her voice small but clear. "We needed it so much. We just didn't know." Dr. Hiran stepped forward. "Honored elders, perhaps it would help if you saw what we have documented. We have recordings of the younglings' time here. With your permission, I would like to show you." Torvash wanted to refuse, but something in his son's eyes made him pause. He nodded once. They moved to a large viewing room. The elders sat, uncomfortable in chairs made for smaller beings. Hiran started the recordings. The first images showed the younglings arriving, tense and aggressive. Then day by day the changes. The elders watched Shira hide her injured hand. They watched Minho gently care for her. They watched Kresh train himself to exhaustion. They watched him break down crying and Minho's patient kindness. But the image that truly shook them came from 2 weeks ago. It showed Vorna, the female youngling who had always been the most hardened, the most aggressive. In the video, she sat with a human teacher named Chayuna. Yuna held a small picture. "Vorna," Yuna said gently, "can you tell me about your family?" "There is nothing to tell," Vorna replied, her voice flat. "I have 2 brothers. One is dead. He was weak. The other leads our combat training. He is strong. I must be stronger or I will die like my brother." "How old were you when your brother died?" 5 seasons. "And how did you feel when that happened?" Vorna looked confused by the question. "Feel? I felt nothing. Feeling is weakness. He failed. That is all." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Vorna, it's okay to miss him. It's okay to be sad that he's gone." "No," Vorna said firmly. "It is not okay. Sadness is weakness. I cannot be weak." "Who told you that sadness is weakness?" "Everyone. It is known. It is truth. What if I told you that sadness is actually a kind of strength? That being able to feel your feelings, to acknowledge them, that's one of the bravest things you can do." Vorna stared at the human. And then something happened that the elders watching had never seen before. Vorna's face crumpled. Tears fell from her eyes. Her whole body shook with sobs she had been holding in for years. "I miss him," she cried. "I miss my brother. I was so scared when he died. I thought I would die too. I still think I might die. I'm so tired of being afraid all the time." Yuna pulled the massive youngling into a hug, and Vorna clung to her like a drowning person clings to land. In the viewing room, the present-day Vorna stood before her mother, Kashira. The elder's face showed shock and something else, something that might have been pain. "My daughter," Kashira said slowly. "I did not know. You never spoke of your fear?" "Because I wasn't allowed to," Vorna replied. "None of us were. We were taught that feelings make us weak. But these humans, they taught us that feelings make us real. They taught us that being scared doesn't mean we're failures. It means we're alive." "You cried," Kashira said, as if the concept was foreign. "I saw you cry." "Yes," Vorna said, and her voice was strong. "I cried. And it was the most powerful thing I've ever done. Because for the first time in my life I was honest about who I am and what I need." Kresh turned to his father. "You raised me to be a warrior, father. And I will be one. But first I want to be a child. Just for a little while." "Is that so wrong?" Torvash stood up. He walked to his son. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other. Then slowly the elder raised his hand. Kresh flinched slightly, an automatic response to years of harsh training. But Torvash did not strike him. Instead, he placed his hand gently on his son's head. It was awkward. It was unfamiliar. But it was the closest thing to a tender gesture the elder knew. "When was the last time I told you I was proud of you?" Torvash asked quietly. Kresh thought. "Never, father. That is not our way." "Perhaps," the elder said, his voice rough with emotions he had no practice expressing. "Perhaps our way needs to change." That evening, the Vrexian elders requested a private meeting with the human representatives. They gathered in a quiet conference room. The atmosphere was heavy with tension and unspoken questions. Captain Jiwoo and Dr. Hyerin sat across from the 15 elders who had come to retrieve their children. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and red. Elder Torvash spoke first. His voice was different now, less angry, more troubled. "What you have shown us today has raised difficult questions, questions we cannot ignore." "We're listening," Jiwoo said gently. "You claim our younglings needed safety. You suggest that our methods of raising them are harmful." Torvash's claws tapped against the table. "This is a serious accusation against our entire culture, against thousands of years of tradition." Dr. Hyerin pulled out a data pad. "I don't wish to insult your culture, honored elder, but I do want to share what we observed." "May I?" The elders exchanged glances. Finally, Kashira nodded. "Speak." "When the younglings first arrived," Hyerin began, "we ran standard psychological assessments. All of them showed signs of severe chronic stress, hypervigilance, inability to relax, difficulty sleeping, constant scanning for threats even in safe environments. These are trauma responses." "Trauma?" Greshtok scoffed. "They are warriors in training. They are prepared for reality." They are children experiencing fear every day of their lives. Yaren replied firmly but not unkindly. Let me ask you something. At what age do Vrexian younglings begin combat training? As soon as they can walk, Torvash answered. Usually around 2 seasons. And do they ever get breaks from this training? Training is life. Life is training. There are no breaks. Hiren nodded slowly. We did research on your species. I hope you don't mind. We needed to understand your culture better. She brought up statistics on her data pad. According to your own public records, what percentage of Vrexian younglings survive to adulthood? The room went quiet. Torvash's eyes narrowed. 60%. But that is natural. The weak must fall so the strong can rise. 60%, Hiren repeated softly. That means 4 out of every 10 children die before they grow up. Most from what your records call training accidents and competition results. That is our way, Kashira said, but her voice wavered. Is it? Another human spoke up. Her name was Park Sojin, a historian who had spent years studying alien cultures. Or is it a tradition that continues because no one has questioned it? You dare question thousands of years of Vrexian culture? Greshtok growled. I dare question any culture that accepts the death of 40% of its children as normal, Sojin replied calmly. Honored elders, I have studied the history of many species, including my own. Do you know what we discovered? The elders waited. We discovered that traditions often continue long after the reasons for them have disappeared. Your species evolved on a death world. Everything there wanted to kill you. Your harsh training methods made sense when younglings might face deadly predators at any moment. They needed to be ready to fight from the earliest age. But that was thousands of years ago. You don't live on death worlds anymore. You have technology, protection, safety, yet you still train your children as if they might die tomorrow. We maintain our strength, Torvash insisted. We remain the greatest warriors in the galaxy. At what cost? Jiwoo asked quietly. He brought up another image on the screen. This is Kresh, your son, during his first week here. Look at his stress markers, his heart rate, his muscle tension. This is not a warrior prepared for battle. This is a child in a constant state of fight or flight. He was slowly destroying himself trying to meet impossible standards. Torvash stared at the medical readouts. He had never seen his son like this, had never thought to look. And this, Hiren continued, showing another image, is Kresh 2 weeks ago. Same tests. Look at the difference. His heart rate is normal. His stress hormones are balanced. He's healthy, truly healthy, not just strong. You say he was destroying himself, Torvash said slowly, but I trained the same way. My father trained the same way. All Vrexians train this way. Yes, Hiren said gently. And how many of your siblings survived to adulthood, Elder Torvash? The question struck like a physical blow. Torvash's face went very still. 3 of my 6 siblings died during training. And Elder Kashira? 2 of 4, she whispered. Elder Greshtok? 4 of 7, he admitted reluctantly. Hiren looked around at all of them. How many of you have lost siblings? Lost children? Lost friends to training that was supposed to make you stronger, but instead killed people you loved? Every elder in the room raised their hand. And yet, Hiren continued, her voice full of compassion, you continue this tradition. Because it's what you know. Because admitting there might be another way means admitting that maybe those deaths were preventable. Maybe they didn't have to die. The silence in the room was crushing. These were warriors who had faced down armies without flinching. But this question, this truth, cut deeper than any blade. Captain Jiwoo stood up and walked to the window. Outside, they could see the courtyard where younglings and human children played together in the fading light. Let me ask you a different question. When was the last time someone told you they were proud of you just for existing? Not for winning, not for being strong, just for being you. The elders had no answer. We don't do that, Torvash finally said. Pride must be earned, must it? Jiwoo turned back to face them. Or is that another tradition that causes pain? We humans, we tell our children we're proud of them every day. We tell them we love them. Not because they won a fight or passed a test, but because they're ours, because they exist, because they matter. That would make them weak, Greshtok protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Would it? Sojin asked. Humans have one of the highest survival rates of any species. 98% of our children reach adulthood. We have no natural weapons, no armor, no venomous fangs. By your logic, we should be the weakest species in the galaxy. Yet we've survived and thrived. How do you explain that? You have technology, Kashira said. So do you. Technology that could make harsh training unnecessary. But you choose to maintain traditions that kill your children. Sojin let that sink in. The question is why? Why do you cling to methods that cause so much suffering, when there are alternatives? Torvash stood abruptly. His massive form towered over the humans, but he didn't look threatening. He looked lost. You speak as if we want our children to suffer, as if we want them to die. We don't. We love them. I believe you, Jiwoo said softly. I believe every parent here loves their children. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes love needs to change, to grow, to question whether what we're doing is truly helping or actually harming. Dr. Hyeren pulled up one final video. This is from yesterday, watch. The video showed Vorna playing with a small human child. The child was teaching her a game called hopscotch. Vorna was awkward at first, her large body not suited for the game. But she tried. And when she succeeded in completing the pattern, the human child clapped and cheered. Vorna's face broke into a smile of pure joy. In the corner of the video, Kashira could see herself watching. She had come to observe her daughter earlier that day. On screen, Kashira's expression was complicated, confused, pained, but also something like wonder. When did you last see your daughter smile like that? Hyeren asked the elder. Kashira's voice was barely a whisper. Never. I have never seen her smile like that. Because she's never felt safe enough to be that happy before, Hyeren said. None of them have. They've been in survival mode their entire lives. And survival mode is exhausting. It's harmful. It prevents growth in ways that have nothing to do with physical weakness. What do you want from us? Torvash asked. He sounded tired, ancient. What is the point of showing us all this? To prove we are bad parents? To shame us? No, Jiwoo said firmly. The point is to show you that there's another way. A way where you don't have to lose 40% of your children. A way where they can be both strong and happy. Warriors and children. Where those things aren't opposites. You ask us to change everything, Greshtok said. We ask you to consider changing some things, Hyeren corrected. Keep your warrior culture if it matters to you. Keep your strength and your pride. But maybe add some gentleness, some safety, some room for your children to be children before they become warriors. The elders sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the building, a youngling laughed. It was a sound of pure, uncomplicated joy. I need time, Torvash said finally. We all need time to think about this. Take all the time you need, Jiwoo replied. Your younglings aren't going anywhere. Not until they're ready. As the meeting ended, Torvash stopped at the door.
Captain Jiwoo, when you said my son was destroying himself trying to meet my expectations, how did you know?
How did you see what I could not? Jiwoo met his eyes. Because we look for different things, Elder. You look for strength. We look for pain. And your children are very, very strong at hiding their pain. But it's there. It's always been there. They just never had permission to show it before. The elder nodded slowly and left. Behind him, the other elders followed, each carrying the weight of questions they had never thought to ask. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Representatives from every major species had come to witness the final decision. Would there be war between humans and Vrexians? Would the younglings be returned by force? The tension in the air was thick enough to taste. But when the Vrexian elders entered, something was different. They moved more slowly. Their faces showed uncertainty instead of rage. Behind them came the 17 younglings walking in formation, but holding themselves differently than before. They looked nervous but determined. Councillor Dythor called the session to order. We are here to resolve the matter of the Vrexian younglings. Elder Torvash, you have spent 3 days on the human colony. What is your decision? Torvash stepped forward. For a long moment he simply stood there gathering his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. I came to New Sol expecting to find my son imprisoned, perhaps harmed. At the very least, I expected to find him brainwashed by human weakness. The crowd leaned forward, waiting. Instead, Torvash continued, I found him happy. I found all of our younglings happy. Not weak, not broken. Happy. It is not a word I ever thought to associate with children, because in our culture, childhood is not a time for happiness. It is a time for proving yourself worthy of survival. He paused. The humans asked me when I last told my son I was proud of him. I could not answer. I could not remember a single time. Not because I am not proud, but because I was taught that expressing such things would make him soft, make him vulnerable. Torvash turned to look at Kresh, who stood with the other younglings. My son, I am proud of you. I am proud of you for surviving our harsh training. I am proud of you for having the courage to ask for more time. I am proud of you for teaching me that strength and gentleness can exist together. Kresh's eyes widened. Several of the younglings gasped. Such open emotion from an elder was unheard of. The humans did not kidnap our children, Torvash declared to the council. They gave them something we did not know they needed. They gave them safety, and in doing so they held up a mirror to our entire culture. A mirror that showed us things we did not want to see. Kashira stepped forward to stand beside him. I have lost 2 of my 4 children to our training methods. For years I told myself this was natural. The price of strength. But watching my daughter Vorna smile for the first time in her life, I realized something. I realized I had been sacrificing my children to tradition without ever asking if that tradition still served us. Another elder, Greshtok, spoke up. I fought against these ideas at first. I was angry, insulted. How dare these weak creatures suggest we were harming our own young? But then I watched the recordings. I saw younglings who flinched at every sound, who never relaxed, who were so afraid of showing weakness that they could not admit when they were hurt or scared or sad. And I saw my own childhood in their faces. He looked down at his clawed hands. I had convinced myself that such harshness made me strong, but perhaps it only made me hard. There is a difference. Counselor Dythor looked to the younglings. And what do you say? What is your choice? Kresh stepped forward. He was still a massive predator, scales gleaming, claws sharp. But now he carried himself differently. Honored Council, we request permission to remain on New Sol for 1 more standard year. Not because we reject our heritage, not because we have been turned against our people, but because we have finally learned what it means to be children. And we are not ready to give that up yet. A youngling named Shira moved to stand beside him. My whole life I was taught that feelings were weakness, that fear meant failure, that I had to be perfect or I would die like my brother died. The humans taught me that those beliefs were lies, that feeling afraid sometimes is normal, that I can be brave and scared at the same time. Talix joined them. I want to be a warrior. I still want to serve my people and defend them with honor. But I also want to learn how to be a person first. The humans have shown me that being kind is not the same as being weak, that helping others does not make you vulnerable. These are lessons I want to bring home to our people. One by one, all 17 younglings spoke. They talked about what they had learned, about feeling safe for the first time, about discovering that they could be loved without having to earn it through combat, about learning that childhood was not just preparation for death but a time to grow and explore and discover who they were. When they finished, Vorna added one more thing. We do not want to stop being Vrexian. We are proud of our people, but we want to help our people become something more, something better. We want younglings who come after us to have what we have found here. We want them to survive not just in body but in spirit. The council chamber was silent. Then from the back a small voice spoke up. It was a human child, one of those who had become friends with the younglings. The child had somehow snuck into the chamber. Why is everyone so quiet? The child asked innocently. They just want to be kids. That's not weird. That's normal. Despite the tension, several beings chuckled. The child was right. What the younglings were asking for was not strange or unreasonable. It was the most natural thing in the universe. They just wanted to be children. Counselor Dythor stood. This council cannot force younglings to return to their families if they do not wish to go, nor can we condemn the humans for providing care and safety. However, this situation has revealed deep concerns about Vrexian child-rearing practices that may violate galactic standards for the treatment of minors. The Vrexian elders tensed, ready to defend their culture. However, Dythor continued, I see before me elders willing to question their own traditions for the good of their children. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. Therefore, I propose the following. The younglings may remain on New Sol for 1 additional year. During this time, interested Vrexian adults may also come to observe and learn human child-rearing methods. At the end of that year, we will reconvene to discuss what changes, if any, the Vrexian Empire wishes to make to their cultural practices. He looked at the elders. This is not about destroying your culture. It is about evolving it, about keeping what makes you strong while releasing what causes unnecessary harm. Do you accept these terms? Torvash looked at his fellow elders. One by one they nodded. He turned back to the council. We accept, and I will be the first to remain on New Soul to learn. If my son can be brave enough to change, then so can I. The council voted. The resolution passed. As the session ended, something unprecedented happened. Kresh walked to his father and in front of the entire Galactic Assembly, hugged him. It was awkward. But then slowly he wrapped his arms around his son and held him. I am sorry, the elder whispered. I am sorry I did not give you this before. You're giving it to me now, Kresh replied. That's what matters. Around them, other younglings approached their parents. Not all the reunions were as smooth. Some elders were still too stiff, too bound by tradition, but seeds had been planted. Questions had been asked, and that was enough for now. 6 months later, Captain Jiwoo stood in his office reading a message. It was from Elder Torvash, who had indeed stayed on New Soul to learn. The elder had taken to the lessons with the same fierce dedication he had once applied to combat training. The message read, Captain Jiwoo, I write to inform you of important developments. Word of our younglings has spread throughout Vrexian space. Many parents, seeing their children happier than they have ever been, are asking questions. Questions about our traditions, about our methods, about whether there might be a better way. I never thought I would see this day, but there is a movement beginning among our people, a movement toward change. 17 new younglings have been enrolled in human schools across the colonies. Their parents want them to experience what our children have experienced. And more are asking to come. They are coming home, Captain, all of them. Because you showed us what home should mean, not a place of constant testing and proving, but a place where one can finally rest, where one can finally be safe, where one can finally be loved without conditions. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for having the courage to show us our own reflections. We still have far to go. Many of my people still resist. Change is hard, especially change that requires admitting we may have been wrong. But every journey begins with a single step, and we have taken that step. The younglings you cared for are teaching others now, teaching them to be gentle, to be kind, to see emotions as strength rather than weakness. My son teaches young Vrexians how to read human storybooks. Forna leads play sessions where children are allowed to simply play without it being combat training in disguise. Shira counsels younglings who are struggling with fear, teaching them what she learned from your people. They are warriors still, but they are warriors who know how to smile, who know how to cry, who know how to help each other without seeing it as weakness. Perhaps that is the greatest strength of all. Your friend, Torvash. Jiwoo set down the message and looked out his window. In the courtyard below, he could see the original 17 younglings mixed with the new arrivals. They were teaching the newcomers how to play, how to relax, how to be children. Humans and Vrexians together creating something new, something better. Dr. Hiran entered his office.